Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Welcome back to the CGS channel, where today we're back ranking ULTRAKILL.
In this series, I listen to and rank all the ULTRAKILL tracks for the first ever time. Spanning across 6 videos, the first 5 will be me listening to a set number of tracks, with the top 2 from each episode progressing to the UltraFinals, where in the final episode, I'll be declaring the GOAT ULTRAKILL soundtrack. And this is episode 3. If this is the first episode of the series that you're watching, I would highly recommend watching the other 2 parts first, which you can easily see by either clicking the playlist link down in the description, or by clicking the card appearing on your screen now, just around here. But before we get into the first track, I've got 2 things to do. First, we've got to disqualify Take Care for not being an original OST, as it is actually an instrumental version of Where You Falling by Bob Causa, which I must admit I never heard, so thank you to those in the comments who let me know. And I wasn't doing this before, but I guess I could rank these 3, and I think I'm just going to put Take Care right in the middle, as I think it's probably more memorable than I Call to You Lord Jesus Christ, but just not quite as good or as iconic as Clair de Lune. But the second and more exciting thing that we're going to be doing is listening to Order with the monologue. Last episode, I asked if you guys would like to see that, and you said yes in your numbers. Just to clarify, this isn't going to affect the ranking, as it's not technically part of the OST, but I am very excited. And also, it's an easy excuse to listen to this incredible track once again. So for the first time today, let's go.
Free at last.
Free at last? Why do I feel like I've heard that elsewhere? Oh my god, this is so intense.
Punishment is death.
What the? I love this part so much, but it is quite funny just hearing all the glass being smashed in the background. Oh, I guess this is the part where he's been defeated?
Forgive me, my children, for I have failed to bring you salvation from this cold, dark world.
That's kind of deep, to be fair. Oh wow, that is literally the ULTRAKILL version of... I must admit, Minos Prime doesn't really sound like the type of guy you're going to go down to your local pub with on a Saturday to grab a beer. He sounds quite menacing and powerful, and that he really packs a punch. But now, let's start things off in Act 2, Imperfect Hatred, and Layer 4, Greed, with Insert Disc 2. Let's go. What is this? Is it just someone actually inserting a disc? Oh, sounds like I'm having a bit of trouble. Nope, got it in now. Oh, that was it. The whole point of this series is to find the GOAT ULTRAKILL soundtrack. Well, ladies and mostly gentlemen, this track has now ruined it, as we have easily found the GOAT ULTRAKILL soundtrack, and maybe the greatest soundtrack in the entirety of gaming history. I feel bad for all the other tracks that have to compete with it. It was so creative and emotional. It deserves its own tier in S+++. On a serious note though, this can't go anywhere other than F tier, right? Although saying that, it didn't make me want to rip my eardrums out, so I'd still say it's better than Complete and Utter Destruction. And yes, I will continue with the slander. Hopefully we can listen to some actual music now with Dune Eternal. Is this a reference to the game Doom Eternal, or was that released after this? I don't know. Either way, let's go. Whoa, the power on that cymbal was devastating. Ooh, I love that bassline pizzazz. Yes! Oh, we're only, what, like 30 seconds into the first proper track of Act 2, and I can already tell that this is going to be a banger episode. And here we've got a... I'm not actually too sure on what it is. It could just be a synthesizer of some sorts. Let me replay that. Hear that doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Is the same bar in an absolute classic, Africa by Toto. In conclusion, drums. In fact, I'm going to call them the ULTRAKILL drums. We had Terraria bells and now we've got ULTRAKILL drums. It's the signature instrument, and pairing them with the metallic style longer power chords is always a blessing to everyone's ears. There was definitely a deserty influence on the track with all these string instruments as well. I would personally say that this is S tier worthy, but definitely on the lower end of S tier, so I'm going to place it in between Glory and Into the Fire. Hello, editing CGS here, that is on grand total of 0 hours sleep. It's just been brought to my attention from a TikTok that just got 100k views, somehow, that Hikita has just released a new track called An Absence. If you would really like for me to react to this as well, let me know in the comments, and if it gets enough support then I'll try and figure out a way to add it to the list. But anyway, enjoy the rest of the video. I've already done that. Continuing with the desert theming, we've now got Sands of Tide. Let's go. Instantly I'm being absorbed with the sheer force of the ULTRAKILL drums. Oh, I do actually really like this beat, it's very in your face. And the melody actually reminds me of Darude Sandstorm. I wonder if that was intentional by Hikita. The flute here is really nice. Not only does it resemble a lot of common Egyptian style instruments such as the argle or more famously the ney, it also breaks up the textures really well, which is something I've always loved about the flute. I believe that there are 4 textures here, including the flute, which is a lot. How I see it, and this obviously varies for different styles of music and composers, but generally 3 musical textures is the maximum, especially when they are as heavy as they are in here. It can give that overwhelming feeling, which I think Chaos gave me before, so the flute here is perfect to separate it up. Anyway, sorry for yapping. The triple cymbals provoke so little yet so much. A dominant texture that pushes all the other textures to the side and just goes, look at me, dun dun dun. It reminds me of when Order did this as well, before all of the glass smashing and beating up and whatever. I'm really enjoying this section as well. It's got such a nice rhythm to it, only helped by staying on the bass frequency. In conclusion, the 4/4 really helped fill out the song. There was an instrument used that I was trying to think of the name during the track, and I just cannot recall it, and it's really bugging me. Oh! Dulcimer. There we go. Fine, I've been sat here for the last 3 minutes trying to think of it. But anyways, yeah, that was helping with the things that I mentioned previously. I'd say the start of this track was an A tier, but the ending of it was definitely an S tier. Let me just play it again. The decrescendo with a hint of 70s rock just hits different. And because of that, I'm going to promote it to just above Dune Eternal for back-to-back S tiers. Next up on the list, we have Dancer in the Darkness. Let's go. This has got a very repetitive melody, and the combination of the choir with the classical instruments gives a feeling of mystery. Also, I don't know what it is, but this gives the impression of a very difficult stage or level within the game, although I could be completely wrong with that. Ooh, a very smooth and serene transition. However, this game is called ULTRAKILL, and we know by now how much Hikita loves to completely flip a track on its head within a heartbeat, so I'm sure this feeling will only be temporary, but the switch from major to minor only exemplifies it. I'm really liking this upbeat, positive correlation. We've still got like 2 minutes left of the track, and I'm really looking forward to this. What a captivating tension increase that was. I assume from your comments on the previous episode that you are now entering a battle against the enemies in-game. In conclusion, it was very dynamic. I really like this piece as it contradicts from the classic ULTRAKILL feeling of heavy metal, yet still managed to create a similar vibe. There was lots of the organ, I think pipe organ being used here, which I felt twisting my organs. A classic Terrible CJS joke. I like the use of counter melodies, but it was the background textures that really stood out to me and felt like it completed the track. You know, like the final piece of a jigsaw puzzle. For example, I'm pretty sure it's a marimba that has that modest, subtle beginning, but if we skip to here, you can hear a progression in that texture in a very clever way that goes mostly unnoticed at first due to a more powerful texture being brought in at the same time, which obviously only gets more exaggerated as we get closer to the ending battle sequence. Overall, this was another really good track. I think it is A tier worthy, probably just lower end of A tier, so I'm going to place it in between Panic Betrayer and Cold Winds. Next up, to end layer 4, we have a track that has caught my eye for a while, called Duel, which is a reprise of Versus. As you can see, Versus has already locked itself into the Ultra Finals due to it being so good, so let's hope we can have a repeat with this. The suspense is killing me, but it's really interesting to hear what I believe is a tambura, which is a very old Indian instrument. Oh, we've got the beginning of Versus now, let's go. Whoa! Hakita has really just taken Versus, which in terms of craziness was already a 10, and just said more! Which I didn't think was possible, but here we are. Also, this does have such a beautiful rhythm to it. The progression from G to F to E major really helps stimulate your brain with the initial enticement of the notes, and then ending it off in the major key harmonises it in a positive and encouraging way. Here's a quick little lesson. If Akita changed this slightly and decided to go for a G, F, E minor bar, it would completely change the whole course of the song around, as it would provoke a failed, deflated and maybe even melancholic feeling. The reason why I bring that up is because little music details, even as small as just one note like here, can have such huge implications on the entire track, and that is so often overlooked. Anyways, let's carry on. The chiptune note, which we did hear in the original Verses, the way it's used here is sublime, honestly. It just makes you wanna... No! Hakita, stop! He is treating us far too well with this incredible solo. This honestly wouldn't be out of place in a James Bond movie. Decrescendo to finish things off? That's a shame. Not because it's bad, just because I didn't want this to end. In conclusion, this reprise felt even more grand and dramatic in a way that captivated my ears more than any other track today by a country mile. Other than Insert Disc 2, obviously. It consistently had hard-hitting chords, and I have a very good feeling it's going to make its way into the Ultra Finals, as I'm placing it at the top of S tier. However, we've still got 5 tracks left to rank today, so who knows, maybe it can be dethroned. But before we find out, we're halfway through the tracks for today now, so you know what time it is. Again, thank you so much for all the really positive comments on the last episode. I feel really blessed to have such a great community that is also really enthusiastic about ULTRAKILL. But this comment from Engalimo really just made me laugh, saying Hakita looked at time signatures, admired it, loved it, and threw it out the window and then created chaos. Live, laugh, Hakita. But as always, if you want to have a chance to be featured as the winning comment of the week for part 4 of this series, all you have to do is subscribe and comment down below. Now, let's move on to the next track, being Deep Blue. This is the first track of layer 5, which is called Wrath. I really hope it lives up to the highs of layer 4, so let's see. I would assume that this has been used as an introduction for the new layer. But the long trill, which I talked about in part 1 of the series, here it is very majestic. I'd assume with a name of Deep Blue that this is a water related level, which is so fitting as we've got a soothing piano as well as some low fidelity background synths, which perfectly gives off that vibe and also reminds me of the opening of the Sunken Sea theme from Terraria Calamity. That was probably the biggest shock of any game's OST ever. I am truly speechless. You can probably tell from how it looks like my face has been reformed to smiling from ear to ear permanently just how much I love this. There's just a level of grace and elegance on this track like no others. In conclusion, I know I've talked about the ULTRAKILL drums as I've called it. The drums here played a significant role in this piece, but this was different. Other tracks, it might just be a really intense kick drum that adds that extra little bit of spice just as an added texture. Here, the drums feel like it's the only foreground texture. All of the other textures, including the piano, which is rare, was in the background. And on top of that, the full drum set was implemented, from the cymbals and snare to the hi-hats, all except what begun it all off in this OST, the aforementioned kick drums. Hikita managed to cook and make fire underwater. Shockingly, another rest here. But hold your comments. I know some of you wanted me to listen to the saxophone version of this track as well, and I don't want to disappoint, so let's go. Oh wow, quite jazzy. The implementation of it does work really well with the track. In conclusion, the sax version was definitely more alerting, as although it was only used sparingly, the general nature of the sax is a lot more dominant, like proper main character energy. If you have a spare minute, I'll definitely recommend watching a band with a sax player in it. It's always funny to see the sax guy have a little smirk on his face before coming in like, "Look at me! I am him!" But yeah, both versions I really, really love. The next track on the list is called He is the Light in My Darkness. A very dramatic title. Will we get a very dramatic track with it? Let's find out. No. Actually, I should say not yet. We know what Hikita is like by now. How did we transition from subtle rain ambience to... If I searched up Melancholy, I would fully expect this to start playing. I can just imagine some guy sat down in a tiny room, writing with his stupid fountain pen about how he's lonely, whilst having an existential crisis. But the harpsichord though, getting me in my feels a little bit. If this carries on, I'm going to have to get my own fountain pen. This is the type of track where we're just going to get randomly thrown into the deep end with heavy metal. No way! I promise you I did not know. Ooh, the duo of the chaotic and furious heavy metal with the organ is so boastful and demoralising. In conclusion, this track was a journey. All the flashbangs of sudden musical explosions, the time signature changes, the church organ I mentioned before. Oh, the harpsichord at the beginning, I almost forgot about that. Just so much happened, you just never had a chance to breathe. The strings were my favourite part, but it was just a little too short, so I'm going to place it... The strings were my favourite part, but it was just a little too short, so I'm going to place it into A tier, just below Requiem. Next up, we've got Death Odyssey. Now it looks like for this there are two different versions, but the OST version's art matches the one that's on the tier list, so I assume that's the right one. I'm sorry if it isn't, but hopefully the two aren't too dissimilar. Anyways, let's go. Whoa! Straight in there, I love that. The constant high energy makes me feel like I'm in a war against an army of enemies. Non-stop action, non-stop stimulation, non-stop ultra kill. Oh, we've got a slightly remixed sequence now, but with even more textures and force, making me feel like we're reaching the epitome, the climax of this war. Making me I'm not doing that again. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually starting to get a bit annoyed now about how every single track is a banger. I need bad ones to balance out the list. How on earth does Hikita manage to balance out elegance with violence so seamlessly it goes beyond me? This gives me the vibe of a classic Spanish dance. Maybe as we are on, I believe, water-related levels, and I mentioned the army earlier, it could be a reference to the Spanish Armada. Also, earlier was on a 6/8 time signature, which was traditionally used by Western European folk music, e.g. Spain. Nailed it. Give this video a like for that. I was probably just waffling, honestly. In conclusion, this is a super energetic prog metal, which if you didn't know is just a fusion genre between heavy metal and progressive rock. You can tell this with the use of the previously mentioned fast time signatures, the chopped breakchord drums and electric guitars. In this track, excluding the melodic patterns, there was no consistency, yet everything was still so ultra godly. The only consistent thing is Akita producing non-stop bangers. The penultimate track for today is Death Odyssey, but the aftermath. Let's go. Oh, so I guess the opening of that was the end of the battle from before, and now this gives the vibe of an epilogue. This is again composed so well. The longer notes stretch out your feelings and emotions into sorrow, like you are sat down looking at the aftermath of this war, seeing all the destruction firsthand, with the wind ambience helping put it into reality. This is so well made, oh my god. I know I sound like the biggest Akita Glazer right now, but how can I not be? I'm trying to be harsh, but there's really nothing much I can critique on. In conclusion, it had the same progression from before, but in a peaceful and emotional way. It really got me hooked and imagining like I was there, seeing the depressing side of what was something much greater. This track told a heartfelt story so unbelievably well. Now this is a difficult one to rank. It's not a track that you go out of your way to listen to, unless you're really in your feels, I guess. I do know some people that have playlists of depressing songs. 1,000 Greetings, I know, was another chilled out modest track, and I think this one was a bit better, so I'm going to put it just above that at the top of B tier. And now, to finish Layer 5 and today's tracks, we've got the Abyss and the Serpent. Can we finish this episode off on a high? Well, for the final time today, let's go. Very daunting. I feel like I'm about to get jump scared. I mean, this horrifying art does not help either. Epically holy! It feels like a mythical-like creature has just entered the arena. Bells in Ultra Kill, I can't believe it! What have I just heard? That was such an odd mix of mastery. First of all, you had an abrupt hammer cut before these polyrhythms and lone guitar riffs, which perfectly represented mystery and anticipation. And if you're listening with headphones, you'll be able to hear the two buzzing sounds. The first one in your left ear and the second one in your right ear. I'm not sure why Akita chooses to do this, but it's pretty cool nonetheless. Does it play it again so you can hear it? Yes. The buzzing sound, by the way, is probably just a synthesizer created through an LFO or a low frequency oscillation, which, to put it simply, allows you to change the pitch of a waveform. And just when you thought this part couldn't get any better, we've now got the added texture of the ULTRAKILL drums. In conclusion, this was very industrial metallic, which resonates with a lot of other tracks in this OST thus far, but this employs abrupt tempo shifts to evoke urgency, while still keeping a 4/4 common time signature. The bass often uses drone notes, which gives a feeling of impending doom, and the overall narrative that I believe Akita is trying to give has been nailed on the head. I will be a little harsh and say that I think the rhythm could have been expanded upon with more syncopated breaks across the whole soundtrack, but other than that little nitpick, this was amazing. For the ranking, I think I probably would have put it around here-ish, but then Bells happens, so it ends up here. What a day. My god, I can really tell the quality of these tracks are just getting better and better as we progress, which just gets me all the more excited for what's coming up. And the Ultra Finals, with Duel and Death Odyssey being added to it, makes for a lineup of OSTs that could honestly create world peace. So here is my finished tier list from episode 3. Thank you so much for watching it all the way to the end. My next UltraKill episode will be out on the 9th of February, as next week I'll be going to Iceland, but I'll still be uploading in the meantime. So for now, good night.